I'm John McQuaid with 8541 Tactical, and today we are going to talk about the AK47 versus the AR15. Now, I got out my Nomex flight suit. I'm not high speed, low drag, but I figured I'm probably going to get flamed for this episode, so I got it on standby. We're going to talk about just some basic features of the AK and the AR, and we're going to talk about why for you one might be a better choice than the other. Most of you guys that are watching this show are going to be familiar with the basics of the AR-15 and the AK-47, but let's run down them real quick. The AR-15 that I chose for this discussion here is an A2 variant. This was designed to be a fairly close clone to the M16A2 that I was issued while I was in the Marine Corps. This rifle feels very much at home to me. I've done a lot of drill with the rifle, I've shot, I've qualified expert numerous times with this rifle, so it really is very, very comfortable for me to handle. That being said, I'm also very aware of its shortcomings, especially in this configuration. The AK-47 that I chose for this is the counterpart to the A2. It's very basic. This is a Century Arms Wasser 10. It is the semi-automatic version of the rifle that I have seen and touched and walked around overseas very often. There really is not a whole lot to be said about this system. Now, the AK overall is a gas piston design, meaning that instead of venting gases all the way back into the receiver, the gases are vented into the gas tube up here, and it drives a piston back, and that piston, connected to an operating rod, transfers mechanical energy to the bolt carrier group to function, eject, load, etc. The AR-15 utilizes a direct impingement system. That means it taps gas out of the barrel up here, vents it through a gas tube, and that gas blows back directly on the bolt carrier group, operating the assembly forward and back to load, eject, etc. That is the biggest difference between the actual operation of the two rifles. The direct impingement system tends to expend more carbon and more dirt and whatnot back into the receiver system. The gas piston design vents that gas out forward of the receiver and tends to put less carbon fouling back into the action. Now, the biggest difference between the handling and shooting of the AK and the AR-15 is the ergonomics of the system. And that's really what we are going to focus on, how your body interfaces with the weapon system. With the AR-15 in the A2 configuration, you have a long handguard and you have a long buttstock. The long handguard is beneficial because it gives you the ability to grip it wherever you need to grab it. If you like to run your hand a little bit further out for a little bit quicker transitions left to right to target, you can do so. If you are a shorter shooter and you have shorter arms, then you can grip the system further back. If you are a smaller shooter with less arm strength, then you can use a little bit more leverage to support the rifle further back than you would reaching further out. The buttstock, especially on the A2 variants, tends to be a little bit long for most shooters unless you're doing standard target shooting type work. Most opt for a more conventional collapsible stock than the A2 length stock. But again, we're trying to compare like to like here, so we went with the fixed stock. On the AK-47, you have a smaller handguard which is closer in, and again, this favors a smaller shooter, which is what this rifle was really designed for. You have a small pistol grip, which is easy to grip for smaller hands, and you have a short buttstock. The advantages of this short buttstock is you can square up more to the rifle, and you can get a better combat shooting position where you are squared up to the target than you can with an A2 stock on an AR-15. So the ergonomics, as far as the hand position and everything, the AK will favor a smaller shooter than the AR-15 A2 will. Now again, we can get into the collapsible stocks and all the stuff you can change around on them. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Now the controls on the AK-47 are designed to be very, very simple. They're designed so that you can just look at them and see how the system operates. The three main controls on the AK-47 is the charging handle, the safety selector, and the magazine release. Those really are the only controls that you have on the rifle. Now, in order to operate the charging handle, the rifle really needs to be in the fire position. So you sweep the safety selector down. It's just this big piece of sheet metal here. To operate, load, eject, clear the rifle, you just grab the charging handle and pull it to the rear, and then release. It's very simple. There's nothing to it. It is attached to the bolt, so as you fire the rifle, it's what's called a reciprocating charging handle. It will slap forward and back, so you need to be aware of that. You want to keep slings, web gear, barricades, walls, etc. clear of the charging handle. If you hit it, then you can cause a stoppage on the rifle. So you want to make sure everything is clear of there. If your body hits it, you can cause an injury. So make sure you're aware of that. Now, the safety selector on the AK-47 on the civilian variants is just simply a 2-position selector. If this was a fully automatic AK, then there would be 3 positions. Since this is semi-automatic, there's in the up position, it's in safe. In the lower position, it's in fire. The issue that I have with the AK safety selector is that it is not in a position where you can operate it from a firing grip. So if I have the rifle up and I'm shooting the rifle, I can't easily switch from safe to fire. There are aftermarket levers that will allow you to do that, but in the plain Jane battlefield pickup mode, you do not have that ability. In order to apply the safety, I like to blade my hand. I come up here and catch it with my middle finger and click it into the on position. Again, if I'm taking the safety off, I will swipe it down with my middle finger, and that is the easiest way to function it for me. Now, the problem that you run into is in order to clear this rifle, to actually operate the handle, the rifle has to be in the fired position. You cannot eject a cartridge with the rifle on safe. That's something that I really don't like. I like to have my weapons on safe until I intend to fire, so I like to keep them on safe when I'm clearing the weapon. It is what it is. I just wish there was a different way about it. Now, the magazine release is right down here on the bottom. The magazine release functions very simply. When you intend to insert a magazine, you catch the lip of the magazine inside the mag well and you rock it in, and the mag catch will grab it. When you want to release the magazine, you come up here, you grab the magazine, you hit the magazine release forward with your thumb and pull the magazine out. When you hit the magazine release, you can then rock the magazine forward and drop it and insert your next magazine. It is not a speedy situation, but it works. And again, everything on here you can just look at and see how it works. On the AR-15, the safety selector is very easy to operate with your thumb. It falls right under your thumb, so if you're walking along, you can have the rifle on safe. When a target appears, you can swipe the safety off as the sights come up. If there's no more targets, no more reason to fire, as you bring the sights down, you can swipe the safety back on. It's very quick. And there really is not a whole lot of hand movement going on when you do it. I really like the position of the safety selector on it. It's a whole lot more ergonomic. Additionally, the magazine release falls directly underneath your index finger when you're not in a firing position. So ejecting the magazine, you can push the button, the magazine will generally fall free. You can retrieve a fresh magazine, and then you're free to insert it. On the AR-15, when your magazine runs dry, the bolt will lock back. The magazine operates the bolt stop, and it will lock the bolt to the rear. When you insert your fresh magazine, you can then operate the bolt release and close the magazine on a fresh round. Usually how that happens is you'll operate it with your support hand thumb. When you insert the magazine, it naturally falls in that area and you can hit that release very, very fast. On the AK-47, that does not occur. When you run dry, your first indication that you've run dry is usually a click. So the hammer will fall on an empty chamber. You then need to retrieve your fresh magazine, a lot of guys will just knock out the spent magazine, catching the magazine release and kick it out. I really prefer to just use my hand and remove it, retrieve the fresh magazine, insert it, and then you have to rack the action to load a fresh round in. Now you're ready to come back up. I really dislike that. And the main reason I dislike that is because if you're in a situation where you're going house to house, you're clearing a room, etc., if you fired all 30 rounds in your magazine, you just pulled the trigger on number 30, eliminated that last target, you sweep out, you're getting ready to go through the door into a fresh room, you now have the bolt closed on an empty chamber. So when you come around that corner, if the first target appears and you pull that trigger, it's going to be a click instead of a bang. And that's one of the loudest noises you've ever heard. So I really prefer to know when my chambers run dry. Now there are mechanical situations where it won't occur on an AR-15, but usually when AR-15 runs dry, the bolt will lock to the rear. If you've trained with this system for a very long time, it has a different recoil impulse when that occurs. The rifle will feel different, and if you're tuned into it, you won't really know it on a conscious level, but you'll just feel something isn't right. And in that case, it's very simple just to roll the rifle inboard, and you can see that the bolt is locked back. And then it's time to go ahead and execute your magazine change. Additionally, anytime you're getting ready to go somewhere, you can just glance down and see if that bolt is forward. Now the controls on the AR-15 are a little bit more complicated. They can be intimidating to a new shooter because it takes some time to get used to where they are and how they operate. But you can attain a higher level of skill with the AR-15, a higher level of proficiency with it than with an AK-47. The AK-47, it is easier to take a novice shooter, hand them this rifle, and get them putting rounds down range to a level that they can defend themselves with than with an AR-15. I also have less of a concern that if it's not properly maintained, that the AK is going to run into a situation where it's no longer going to function correctly than with the AR-15. Really, I could tell somebody with an AK-47, hey, when you change the oil in your car, take a little bit of that leftover oil, dump it inside the action, and you'll be good to go. And honestly, you would. It's going to stink, it's going to look ugly, but the rifle will still function. With the AR-15, it's a little bit like the difference between a pickup truck and a race car. The AR-15 is really going to require a higher degree of maintenance, but it's going to give you a higher reward than the AK. That's my view on it. Now, the accuracy situation, the AR-15 is more intrinsically accurate than the AK-47. An AK can be made to be very accurate, but it is going to take more work than with the AR-15. In the rack conditions, right like they're issued, the AR-15 is the more accurate system. I know I'll probably get some arguments on that, but so be it. Now, finally, let's talk about what we in the private sector really like to do most, and that's modify. There really is little argument that if you like to modify your rifles, the AR-15 is the way to go. I can take this system here and in 10 minutes turn it into a totally different rifle. I can change the caliber, I can change the stock, I can change the handguards, I can change the upper, I can change the barrel length. Additionally, if I wanted to retain this configuration, I can just knock these two pins out down here. I can take this whole upper off with the bolt and bolt carrier and everything, and I can stick it in a safe. I can build a completely different upper. I can build an entry upper, I can build a precision upper for this rifle. I can put an adjustable stock on here that will allow me to use it either in an entry roll or a precision rifle roll. And I can switch between those two on a whim. I can just decide I'm going out the range to do this today, so I'll put a precision upper on it. I come home from the range, I clean the rifle, I decide, okay, it's going to go back into its home defense role, and I can put a short entry upper back on this thing, and be good to go. It just is that quick to switch it around. With the AK-47, you really don't have that freedom. There is a lot you can do to an AK-47 to modify it, but you cannot modify it as quickly and as easily as you can with an AR-15. Some of the operations on the AK, for instance, removing and installing a barrel, require more specialized tools. They require a higher degree of mechanical skill than with the AR-15. AR-15's replacing the barrel is just a simple matter of using a barrel wrench to spin the old one off and spin the new one on and make sure your bolt head spaces. It's really quite simple. The AR-15 or the AK-47 just is not that simple. There are a ton of parts out there for the AK-47, so you can change the system up and set it up for how you want to use it, but not quite as easily. Additionally, adding optics to the AK-47 is considerably more difficult than adding optics to an AR-15 platform. It just is. That's one of the biggest drawbacks between the two that I see. If you're going for precision, the AR-15 is probably where you want to be. If you just want a rifle that you can kick the snot out of and still depend on to defend your life with a minimal amount of skill to operate it, then the AK-47 is a really good place to look. Now, one of the key reasons I wanted to do this video is we're getting ready to do a little bit more stuff with the AK-47. We do quite a bit of stuff with the AR-15. We've done some AR builds now. We may have some more AR builds coming up in the future, but we are going to pimp out our AK. Now, don't worry, we're not going to turn the AK into an AR. We're not trying to do that. I still want to keep it functioning like an AK-47. But we're going to do some stuff that will really enhance the function of the rifle and how I use the rifle. So we're going to try a couple of different things and see what works, see what doesn't, and see what the outcome is on that. So stay tuned on that. Now, I know you're going to have questions and comments for me, so please leave your comments in the comments section below or send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you liked the video, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. If you absolutely hated this video and thought it was a waste of time, then before you click that thumbs down, please go below and leave me a comment on why you thought this was an absolutely horrible video. If you're a subscriber, thank you very much. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Helps us out, shows manufacturers that you want to see what we're doing, and YouTube will keep you abreast of our new videos. Until next time, get out and shoot!